All right, good morning. I'm just going to do a quick update on where I've made it to so far. So I've been working on Cambigo, which is a workflow um, building platform that basically helps you create a process, build an application, improve things, take you from where you are to where you want to be, and guide you through that process. And so I've been working on the initial functionality um, that should be supported by the platform. My plan is to release this in about another week so that you can play with it, build a basic workflow, save it, load it back later, and generally make use of it for just a small initial workflow. And the plan is to see how things work, make improvements there before I start adding all of the other aspects of the system. So I want to show, actually first, let me do something here. The benefit of a live view. Okay, so this is the screen that once you log in and you start to use the system, this would be where you do all of the work. And this is what I've been building this week. Essentially, you can come in and we'll do workflow for sending a message. We'll do, you can click on it to type in it. You can change the type of action that it is in the workflow. For now, I just started with these four. This is what I use in my basic workflows. I'm going to add one for a measurement. Something that I haven't accounted for along the way is when you want to make sure that you're recording something or capturing something that tells you how the workflow is performing, how the work's being progressing, that kind of thing for the performance aspect. So I do want to add that. But this one's a notification. You can click save. And then down here we would have receive message. Turn that into an action. And then you can also have branches. So maybe something else happens along the way. And for this one, we'll just do it as a stored. It'd actually be an action. So if you make a mistake too, you can hit cancel and it goes back. We'll do an external action is something that happens outside of this particular workflow. So in the future, my plan is to link this to other workflows that someone else may manage. So say someone else is doing other work that involves this particular workflow, but you don't want to detail it here, then basically this external action is that indicator that, hey, there's all of these things that happen outside, but you're not detailing it here. So when you click on it, you would be able to link it to that other workflow. And then if other people manage that, they're keeping the details there. You can still get to it, um, but it's not a part of this one because ultimately, you don't control what's behind that particular action. Save. The other thing you can do is drag to create new work items in the workflow. So this box, and you can also delete, get rid of that one. And then you can add in the middle of a line where you may want to add a box. So you can add a new step. And there's the workflow. The other thing that I'm working on is a tabular view. So this basically has the information that we were just looking at on the other screen, except it's in more of a linear table type view so that you can switch between the two. And then um, work will be setting up how you're able to drag these items. It gets a little bit complicated because where you have the branches in the workflow, I have to account for that and then appropriately nest things. So if I move it, then I'm going to have to make sure that it's connected appropriately. That way, when you switch back to the diagram view, all of the boxes are linked. That way, you can set things up this way, build it together. But this is also an opportunity where if you're just going through and capturing information, so there would be an addition box at the bottom, you would be able to add those step by steps without having to go through the diagram and do everything. So you could move a little bit faster just to capture things. And then these are basically going to be alternate or your normal course and your alternate course. So if you're doing, there's this option to do A or B. A is your normal course, B is your alternate course. You would have those sections in here to know, or maybe there's something that repeats. You'd have those kinds of bits of information. You can also make edits here. I have that set up. So when I go back, it's actually updated in the graph as well. So everything you do here would translate back to your diagram. For the demonstration, or at least for what I'm going to share of this to use, I will have the ability to export. So all of this is saved to a document that you can then save and come back later and import that workflow to pick up because I'm not saving things on the servers. So this way you can save the work you do. Only you have it. So it's not going to anything that I would have or would go into the application. So you're able to export it, keep it private to yourself. You can import it, which is still going to be private to the browser that you're using locally. And then continue working on it and building it. You can also save multiple files. So the plan is to have it available like this until things are really set, it's working well. I do want to create a way to limit the amount of people that can come in and use it. So I do need to add some sort of code that you would have. And then that basically just gives you the ability to access the page. It still doesn't store any information. So it's just giving you access to the page. I can limit the number of people that are actually able to make use of it so that it can go out to like thousands of people. And then at some point, I will set up the website part of it where you would actually create an account and log in. I would give you for being an initial tester, I would give you a free account and you would be able to log in. At some point, I will add the database capabilities to store these. I'm still working on that. I do want to have a way to keep what's in a workflow completely private if you want to do that, so that if something happens and the database is ever exposed, because you have to assume that those kinds of things can happen, as long as it's protected, nobody would be able to get to the information that's inside of it. So I want to set all of that up before I start storing information. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. But this basically what I have and what I plan to release in the next week is this interface here that allows you to go in, build your workflow, make your edits. You can share this screen with other people and go through and do an interview, build a workflow. You can add new branches. And then, like I said, the trick is getting all of that to work inside of this table. You can see the new branch that I added is not showing up yet. That's because this is what I'm working on at the moment. So yeah, there's where things are. Took a lot of work to do this. The basics, the basic view is something that's called React Flow, but you have to do all of the work to give it the look and feel that you want it to, the behavior. So like when I click on the boxes, to be able to bring that in focus and then go back out as you click, those kinds of things. That's taking quite a bit of work, which kind of leads me into, I used specifically for this feature that helps with the zooming, is something that I did with the assistance of GitHub Copilot, which is AI assisted bot, so to speak, that helps you. I could say when I pick a node in my browser, I want it to be able to zoom in on it so that I can make the edits. The interesting thing is, like, it's cool because it sets up some of those things for you, but it's still not perfect because, you know, bigger bigger features, bigger aspects of the application, I'm finding you have to be very specific. So you want to work on a very small problem and let that be the thing that's resolved. It's interesting to me how people that don't have a lot of application development experience would truly build an application that's good enough for production use, because um, there's a couple times where I've caught it getting into issues. And when you point out the issue, it tries to make the fix, but it makes things worse. And eventually, when it fixes things, it has worked around itself in the code. So things have changed drastically from where you started from. And in some cases, it removes features along the way and you don't realize it. So, having good testing in place to make sure that you don't have what we would call regressions, and that is like it removes a feature that you expect to be there. Um, at one point, I was doing an edit on the table view, and it removed all of my highlighting and things like that for the the node types. So fortunately, I caught that and fixed it. But if you weren't watching those things or testing for those things, I'm I'm wondering how applications are going to start looking that people have used this in order to, you can get pretty far with it, but I still think you really need some experience and understanding of how these things are put together in order to take it to production. So, this may be good for building the concept, which is definitely, like, there were little pieces that it helped me through that I didn't have to spend a few hours reading up on and understanding. I could get like the zoom in being the example, I could get a good example to work off of and make adjustments. So it's kind of cool. I do find you can pick the different models that you use as well. and Claude seems to be better for me than the GPT models, in my opinion. But yeah, so that's that's where things are so far. I'm making progress. I still think I'll be able to release this next week. Um, the big things that I want to wrap up is really getting this table view functional so that you can build your workflow in this view and then go back over to the diagram and have it built out. That way you can choose the approach that you want to use and really capture those normal course, alternate course type activities, which are very important to more sophisticated workflows. The external linkage will probably be a while before it happens. That'll be something that ends up in the backlog for later. And that's kind of where things are. So, not very long, but just kind of a Friday demo of where things are. Keep your fingers crossed that next week I can actually release it and share it with some of you if you're interested in using it. And if you are, let me know. Um, and then we'll be in